Hey there, Friday Night Movie family. We have some amazing news and we need your help. The Friday Night Movie Podcast has been nominated for not one, but 2 Signal Awards. These are like the Emmys or the Oscars for podcasts. And fan voting has begun. That's going to play a role in who wins. And the links of where to vote are on our Instagram. Just go to the link in bio. There's 2 links because we're nominated in 2 categories. The first one we're nominated in, and this will blow your mind, is for Best Co-Host Team in a limited series. And this was where we were nominated for the Infertility special we did about Lily's fertility journey. The more amazing thing is that in this category, we are up against head-to-head with a legend, with Conan O'Brien. So we need every single vote in order to have a chance of winning. But even then, who cares? Because it's pretty amazing. We're probably going to get to lose to Conan O'Brien. We're also nominated for Best Buddy Podcast. That's like a team of hosts. And voting ends on December 22nd. So again, go to @FridayNightMovie on Instagram, hit the link in bio, and there you will see 2 links to vote. Please go and vote. We appreciate so much all the support everyone has given us. We're so honored to be nominated by the Signal Awards, and we'd love to take that even further. So please, if you love this show, if you love us, if you don't listen past this bumper, go to those links, vote. And again, we're so grateful to everybody who's been on the show, everyone who supports the show, everyone who pretends to listen to the show and tells us that to our face, but really listens to other podcasts. We love you, and we are incredibly grateful. And now we hope you enjoy today's episode. Here we are, and welcome to another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. Today is a mega crossover. This is part one. Part one of this episode will exist on the Friday Night Movie feed, and then you'll go over to an amazing podcast, The Wrong Cat Died with Mike Abrams, for part 2. And yes, you heard the word cat, because that means we are going to talk about Cats, my favorite musical.
Because we haven't done enough episodes yet about cats.
There's no such thing.
Speaking of cats, I heard, because I don't necessarily remember everything that's in all of our episodes, I heard that we even talked about cats in our now Signal Award episode. Don't forget to vote. Forget to vote. Go to our Instagram. It has all the information on
we did talk about cats. I reminded you the other day
that we talked about cats, even in
you talked about cats,
about your fertility journey. What could I possibly have said?
I think it's that I was like telling you it's like really big important news or something. I don't know. Everybody should go to the episode and listen to it. And you were like, I was like, oh, Shai, I to tell you something, and it was like maybe something serious, and you were like, you're so excited the Cats movie is coming out because it's around the same time. I was like, or you saw the Cats trailer? I was like, no, I didn't see the fucking Cats trailer. I like had to freeze my eggs or whatever. I was like very serious. And you're like, oh, it's not about cats. Okay.
Well, like that. We've got here with us Mike Abrams. Mike, welcome to the family.
I'm excited to be here. I'm a fan of the show and happy to participate and probably educate you on a lot of stuff I would assume you don't know about cats, which is always fun.
I don't know.
Me and Becky for sure.
Myself and Lily. But
Shai,
I'm so curious. What else is there left for Shai to learn about cats? That's what we'll be like.
And I'll just say also, Mike was introduced to us by the great Chen Drachman, who has just started her Kickstarter or her crowdfunding. I think it's on Indiegogo, for her But I'm a Shoe animated short. So
short film,
go and see that too. So Mike, let's talk about, unless Lily or Becky, did Lily or Becky have a story?
I don't have a story at the top, but I do need to say something that, so I am shocked to hear I think I read this right, Mike, that your love of cats, like you saw cats as an adult.
Yeah, let's be careful with the word love. Let's be careful with the word love.
Okay.
I think there's a fascination.
Mike has a cats podcast, but he's a little bit emotionally detached from it.
You seem I listened to your podcast. You seem so respectful to the people. Like you're just so, it seemed like, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like maybe love is there.
Yeah. The story of how this podcast started is fairly fascinating to begin with. So I'll give kind of the short version because it's kind of a unique thing. And I don't talk about it a ton on my podcast because my podcast has evolved, but I'm born and raised in Indiana. Whole family's still in Indiana. I moved to New York 6.5 years ago in 2016 for a job. I got recruited and picked up and moved very quickly. And I had always been, if you can't tell and this is audio, but you can't see my background, everything in my background until like a week ago, I added a playbill is sports. I've got a Pacers pillow. I'm wearing a Pacers t-shirt. I got
the
all
Pacers
sports
basketball team.
Yeah, Indiana
I was
Pacers.
literally going to be like, is it a skateboarding team?
Yeah,
what do the Pacers do?
Indiana Pacers. They play basketball in the NBA. So I am like. I'm not like a theater person in the sense that just like I was a fan. I like to go, but if you ask me anything pre 2016, I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I hadn't seen any of these like super famous shows. I hadn't seen Les Mis. I hadn't seen Phantom. I hadn't seen Cats.
You didn't grow up in musical theater, is what you're saying.
No, and 5 shows come to Indiana a year. Like that's the tour. Like you get 5 shows, and that's it. So I went to a couple growing up, but like. I was a fan. I was living in the theater district in temporary housing. I was like, why no? Like, I should go see some of these things. They're here. Why not? So the 2016 revival of Cats had just started the previews. And my friend who works in theater was like, oh, let's go. I'll get you tickets to a preview. So I went and it was a matinee. My friend got sick, couldn't even come. I knew about 5 people living in New York at the time. So I didn't have anybody even call to be like, hey, you want to go see Cats with me? And by the way, your new friends in the city, you're not going to call up and be like, hey, I got free Cats tickets. Who wants to come? So I sat there by myself.
Great way to make
amazing
tickets.
Amazing.
Like, great tickets from the theater, like unbelievable matinee, second to last preview of the
it was Destiny.
Of the revival.
Of the 2016.
Of the 2016.
One at the Neil Simon Theater.
Yes, at the Neil Simon Theater. And let's just say I didn't know what I was getting into. And I was like blown away in a good way of like, this is really cool. But like, as someone who likes sitcoms and like neat and tidy stories, I didn't get that at all. And so I had been writing a newsletter-ish type of thing home to people in Indiana about work in New York and the subway and like the stuff that you just don't believe if you're from the Midwest and you don't live here. And I just suspended that week and just wrote about cats. And I just made fun of the plot, the whole thing. And
can I ask how old you were or are?
30s. I was in my 30s, probably like late 20s, early 30s at the time.
Early 30s.
So I was a full working adult. Like, I hadn't been exposed to it all as a kid. My sister, I think, went to like a dinner theater when we were younger, but I had no idea what it was. I just knew it was a punchline. Like it was an easy punchline. So I knew the general cultural piece of Cats, but nothing about the plot, the show, what was going to happen. So fast forward to that trailer that you're talking about of the movie. And I got probably 25, 30 texts of people saying like, because they remember I wrote that newsletter, just making fun of it. They're like, oh, you have strong opinions about Cats. And I hadn't thought about Cats again since that movie. Like I hadn't really never thought about it. And so I went on social media and I put a post that said, I had a picture of me that looked like I was going to give I was giving a speech. All I was doing an introduction for something else. And it looks like I'm giving a TED talk. So I said, Grisabella was the wrong Jokel choice. The new movie is going to set the record straight. Welcome to my TED talk. And the Broadway Podcast Network, who are a couple friends of mine who started it, said, hey, that's your podcast. We're going to make a podcast out of that. And I said, let me write one episode leading up to the movie. If I can come up with 10, like explaining the Cats, explaining what it is as an outsider, I will do 10 episodes for you. And that was my original agreement with their network was I'll write 10 episodes. And I started researching the show. And let me tell you, it is a dark, dark, dark web of theories and stories of cats. If you like really dig into 40 years of history,
right,
and the relationships that could be there and the backstories, because there's not enough in there. Like people fill in the blanks, and you start filling in the blanks with this actor's interpretation of that character. Some of it gets really dark, some of it gets really sexual, some of it gets really kind of crazy. And so I found so much stuff.
A lot of fan fiction.
Yeah, fan fiction is, I did almost a full episode on it from Mistopheles about fan fiction. And so I wrote the 10 episodes, and about halfway through, a couple people from 2016 cast heard about it. And I did interviews. So I started interviewing them, and I realized the interviews are way more fun because everybody has a very different interpretation of how their character should be portrayed within some confines. And so I started doing interviews, and it was way more fun for me. I got to hear somebody else's take, and it was fun for me because I also got to like say, here's kind of how I've heard about it or how I thought about it. And we started debating all around also the thesis at the end that like, I don't think Grisabella should be the one to go to the Heaviside Layer. So what do you think, and how else can we interpret it? And like all the other pieces of the show. And it's like Cats has basically created a universe, and they don't give you much to work off in that universe. You get 2 hours and 45 minutes. And so there's a lot of open-ended questions, and it snowballed. So I went from there to just interviewing a few cast members to then saying, oh, you should talk to this person. You should talk to this person. And as of now, I've talked to over 15 different productions. So like Royal Caribbean Cruise, Vienna, West End, tours.
Cruise where it's like a Cats themed cruise, because I'm against cruises, but I'm interested in this. It's still on. It's called the Oasis of the Seas.
The Oasis of the Seas.
The Oasis of the Seas does now a 90-minute version because they had to cut intermissions because no one came back after intermission, because it is just performed twice during the 7 days.
Murdered and pushed over the boat.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like you're not paying for it. You're not doing so.
Right.
I've talked to those cast members. I've talked to almost every different cat character, and I'm nearing 100 episodes of that, and it's continuing. I pretty much have said I will document. I now feel like I'm documenting Cat's history because I'm getting everybody's like interpretation of their character from the source, from them. And it's fun because they all have different things. So I had two Victorias arguing with each other the other day because one said one thing and one was like, nope, that's not right. And it was like they were going back and forth, and they were just messaging it to me being like, that person's wrong, this person's wrong. I'm like, I'm out of this. Like I have no qualms. But like
this is amazing.
Everyone thinks it's like my favorite show. I've only seen it on stage twice. And I've seen the movie, the 1998 movie, twice. And I've seen the regular movie, the 2019, which we're going to talk about because it's the 3-year anniversary, like this upcoming weekend. I've seen that 1.5 times because I tried to show my family right when it came out on DVD, and they about halfway through they go, "Does this get any better?" And I said, "No, not really." And they turned it off.
About the Skimbleshanks dance deep into
it's amazing.
So
Becky and
Mike, I'm not sure. Sorry,
and I stand by that new song that was written. I stand by. Yeah, I stand.
Agree.
I agree.
I'm going to interrupt everyone to tell Mike that you were speaking to a man, Shai Corman, who for his children when they were smaller would play on repeat the old VHS of the live Broadway show
DVD.
Yeah, the 1998 movie.
1998 stage recording for his family, not one time, but many times.
Oh yeah, comment.
You
got to get them young, right? So that when they're little, they fully know the songs.
That's because, as I've said many times on this show, it's because you have to have a sense of wonder. And when you're little, you have a bigger sense of wonder. You also are terrified of things like McCavity and the Rumpus Cat, but that's a different story. Okay, Mike, one of the best things you do on your show is that I love, that I actually do in my imagination all the time, is transpose the cats to different universes and like
my favorite thing.
And I feel like I even heard you compare them to Seinfeld once. Did you do Seinfeld?
I haven't done Seinfeld. I did the fun ones. I did sports, which was super fun because I had a comedian who was mostly sports commentary, but was cousins with the Skimbleshanks from 2016. So that was fun. I do pretty much anytime I do a new show, like if I talk to somebody in the show, I try to do their show. I just did Billions. Billions was fun. Some are really easy and some are really hard. I've done Wicked before. I've done a couple. Yeah, I've done a handful.
Okay, so we're gonna throw one at you now because we're gonna catch a lot of things here at the same time. Our last episode was all based around predicting the final episode of White Lotus. Now that still hasn't come out yet because of the recording schedule. So we're deep into White Lotus predictions.
By the time this episode airs, though, it will have come. No, it won't.
Yeah, it should.
Right?
No, it will have come out by the time this episode airs.
Right. All right. It's coming out.
It comes out on Monday. Okay. And we did our predictions. And one of the things that Becky hadn't actually seen the second to last episode. And Becky's very good at watching complicated TV shows. And Becky immediately messaged Lily and me asking us if we were actually watching the same show, because there were a whole bunch of things we confused, including the picture that I thought was I did not make the connection.
I was watching on an iPad, so
Greg. I also didn't know that guy's name was Greg. Is in the picture of Jennifer Coolidge of the rich guy, the uncle that Richard that and
what?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Mike didn't get it.
Well,
it's a picture of the uncle and Greg as young men as cowboys.
Greg is the cowboy.
Greg is the cowboy that he would do anything for 30 years later.
Wow.
Oh, Greg is the cowboy that he was in love.
Oh, Shai, you didn't even get that from the texts?
I was like, I guess they know each other.
Greg is Uncle Rico.
No, Greg
right?
is his.
Yeah, Greg is Uncle Rico.
Okay.
Yeah. And Greg is his unrequited love from when he was younger that he tells Jennifer Coolidge about.
I miss all this. I'm not.
But she sees the picture, but she's like on coke and doesn't pay attention.
Or maybe she notices, and that's why she's going to survive.
The plan is thwarted. Maybe he should have hid that picture.
Either way, I love Becky's message to us that said, "Guys, it's not The Witcher.
It's not that hard to follow. There's not that many plot points."
But then on our new Instagram account, at FNM Sisters, I posted about that, and I got some messages from people being like, "Oh, wow," and they had a few like questions. So we did a service by not knowing that.
See, and Mike didn't know.
I didn't know that, but I also am a very multi-screen TV watcher. So,
I mean, they really have to. This was clearly, against those type of people.
Now, Becky, do you have any record you want to set straight before we have Mike do his predictions, but also thread Cats into White Lotus?
Any records I want to set straight
from the last episode, because you hadn't seen the last episode.
You hadn't seen Greg.
Greg is the cowboy. Greg is the cowboy, and no, and I think my prediction that I think Lucia is angling for Albie to bring her back to LA.
A green card.
That's what I think. I don't think she's trying to swindle them out of money. I mean, I think she'd be happy to, but I think she's angling for Albie to save her and bring her back to LA. Those were my
marry her and get a green card.
Yeah. Like save her and get her away from there and bring her back. That's what I think.
It would be 2 seasons in a row where, like, I'm thinking of, oh my God, I love her.
But I still have no idea who's dead. It almost feels irrelevant. Like it has to be the uncle and all those people that are dead. Yeah. It has to be like a whole bunch of.
Well, I assume they're going to try and kill Jennifer Coolidge to get the money, and then she'll outsmart them, or Portia will save her or something, and then they'll die.
I think she'll sort of accidentally outsmart them.
No, she's smart. That's one of the themes of this season. Is that she's smarter than she looks. Okay, Mike, what are your predictions? Just, you don't have to say like all of the predictions, but do you have any predictions associated with the White Lotus finale?
I have more questions than I have predictions.
Becky can answer those for you.
Becky can answer all of them. I'm sure.
One question is how in 1 hour are they going to close all the different storylines that are open? Because there's a lot.
Maybe it's a 2-parter. Maybe this will go into season 3.
No, I think it's all going to. It's all converging. I think it's all going
to be chaotic. Think about how chaotic the last episode of the last season was.
And they won't resolve. If Lucia goes off with Albie, we're never going to see them again.
The only thing that feels it's going to be chaotic and difficult to wrap up is Tanya's story. Because I think what Harper is trying to do, I think Harper is trying to get Ethan to out Cameron as a cheater in front of Daphne. I think that's what she's angling to do. I think she's now trying to mess with him and mess with his head to get him so enraged that he breaks and he says the secret in front of everyone, and is a way to,
the facade is
a way for her to punish Cameron and Ethan, and it's all of that. That's what I think, So I think that's going to be very easy to wrap up. And I think that's what Daphne's working towards. She like switched her tune and she's Harper. Like, all right, let's see. Yeah, Harper. Sorry, that's what Harper's, I think she's going to try and switch. I think that's why she all of a sudden in the second half of the episode was just behaving really differently. And I think that's easy to wrap up. The whole Lucia and whatever her friend is and Mia, that's going to be also pretty easy. It's the really chaotic one. Is going to be
Valentina fall in love and like get married.
Ooh. Sure. I think it's just a good way to soften. I think it's a good way to soften Valentina and just get her to take her guard down a bit and take it down a notch a little bit.
So I was at a holiday party and we were debating this because I had the notes and I brought this up, and there was two things that nobody could agree on.
Ooh,
and they were split down the middle on these two themes. One was, is Ethan gay? And he was in love with Cam, and that's why their marriage is a little rocky. And there's some like animosity there. So that was one. And then is Albie problematic or is he wholesome? And there was a very
Shai and I argue about that all the time.
Heated debate on if he's a problematic character or if he is just a nice
guy. Shai and I had
I think he's just
like people want to make him problematic. Explain to me, why is he problematic?
My sister's convinced me he's just like self-righteous 20-something-year-old, and like that's what he is.
He means to do
those are the lead, like college graduates are so unlikable, in their due to their self-confidence, that I think that's why this person might why I instinctively didn't like Albie, but the more and more my sisters defend him, the more and more.
I don't think you need to like him. I think he's
with
just
an escort. Is that
no? I don't think he's supposed to be very likable. He's supposed to be a exactly what he is, a privileged kid who just got out of college, who has a bleeding heart and cares so much, and as a way of compensating for all of his privilege, And he's just very young, and he's going to
his dad, who he hates for screwing up his childhood. So that's why he's repeating the dad's mistakes.
Is he repeating the dad's mistakes?
Well, or throwing the dad's mistakes in his face. Like he's not going to listen to the dad's advice.
But I want to know where are cats coming into this?
Oh, wait, Mike. Did you say more on whether or not Albie's problematic? Like
I was fascinated just hearing it was the exact same thing last night. Just adding a lot more alcohol to that conversation.
What camp do you fall in?
I think the Ethan piece is super interesting because that when I heard that I was like, that makes sense. Because there's a lot of like, you could see when you look at it, it's like, is he mad at his wife or is he mad at now Theo James? Was his name Cameron? Is he mad at Cameron? Because that was his like love interest in college, and that so that one I was like,
so it's interesting that they show us the porn that he's
that's
enjoying himself too. Like the show is really good at dropping clues, and I do think it's interesting that they show us that angle and you see what he's looking at. They could have not shown us and you wouldn't have known, but
that's true.
But again, that wouldn't necessarily make a difference, but that's interesting theory. I like that though.
I hadn't thought about the Albie being problematic. I just was like, oh, this is a character that is like pretentious but not problematic. Right. And so I was more of the camp of, okay, he's just he's on a vacation that he probably doesn't even want to be on and is trying to make the most of it, and like then got angry because he's again feels like he's deserved a lot of stuff. But I never looked at it as like, oh, this is somebody who like, there were some heated people who were like, no, this character is bad. And so
I'm not in that camp. I don't think it's bad.
So how does this connect to cats? So on Mike's
if he's bad, who's good?
Mike matches up the cats with characters. So Mike, we've stalled. We've given you time here. How
I had to prep for these because these are hard to do.
I did say this. I open it up and I say any of the White Lotus characters. So it does not have to be
The main characters.
Just season 2 though. Like because
okay.
right, because that's a lot to ask is to transpose a TV show. So I given Mike both seasons of White Lotus to play with, transpose some cats into White Lotus. So this is some real niche podcasting here, people, because you have to be a White Lotus fan and a Cats fan.
Do you have thoughts on this as well, or do you? Because I
left my mind blank. I spent my energy prepping mine for.
Don't worry, Mike.
I'm going to do this
with it on the spot because this is probably his favorite game.
Yeah, it's it does take this is where 100 episodes help, because if you would have told me this at episode 5, I would have been like, I don't even know the other cats' names, So I did just a season because I was like, I don't even remember season 1 enough to go back to it. So I'm going to go, some are hard, some are easy. There's some overlap because there's only so many cats, especially when you start talking about the female cats. There's only a handful that really kind of have enough substance to be able to make one. But and then I really had to figure out names because I didn't know any of the
I just have nicknames for them. I've been calling Ethan Seth the whole time.
Yeah, so I did look them up. So I will go through who I think they are. Or do you want to throw out? How about you all throw out the character and then I'll tell you who I think they are.
Oh, okay. Wow,
great.
That's specific. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very obvious.
Who do you think is Lucia?
So I have Lucia and Mia together, and I have them as Bomb, Ballerina, and Demeter. Yeah. What I think becomes interesting about that is I think Mia started as Demeter because the character of Demeter has a very dark backstory that they were sexually abused by McCavity, and that's why they're skittish and they are very reserved. And I felt like Mia was really reserved, and Bomb Ballerina was probably a little bit more open and forthcoming. I think they actually too have flipped though as you go through the season. So I originally had it as Mia as Demeter and Bomb Ballerina as Lucia, but now I think Mia is more open and having her Valentina time, and Lucia's, you're starting to see she's getting a little scared of the
darker
other past. So I think it's still those two, and they're kind of sisters or best friends. And I just don't know which order they are because I feel beginning of the season is different than the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. Lucia is the darker of the two, and Mia is the more bombastic, not really thinking about the consequences of the two of them.
Yeah.
See, I would have put them together and said they're Rum Tum Tugger because they're very sexual and a performer. So I'm like, doesn't that no?
I think that's true. I mean, they cause some chaos too, which is his whole thing.
Everyone's falling over. What's great about
this is there's no right answer to it. It's just your interpretation of their story versus some cat's story from 40 years ago.
Now that we've started talking about this, I do have one in mind, and I have one in mind for Tanya Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh,
who?
Isabella.
No,
that's what I had. That's what I had. I had Isabella.
I put her as either Jenny Annie Dots.
Oh, yes,
Jenny Annie Dots, but the Jenny Annie Dots. This is more movie inspired, more of the Rebel Wilson kind of insane party dancing roaches. Annie Dots,
for sure.
Or Judi Dench Deuteronomy, just because it's another one that's so weird, and she's just so weird. But in this season, they've shown how wise she is.
Yes,
I am much more with you, Lily, that I had her as Grisabella, but I had her as Grisabella before she comes back to the tribe. So Grisabella goes off, leaves the tribe. I've always called her Bald Brittany, she's in her bad stage of life.
Bald Brittany.
And I had just watched the episode. You've got her doing coke. She's got a rough marriage right now. She's in some stuff with this whole group that she just kind of met up with and doesn't know anything about. So I have her as the Grisabella character, which I think would fit if she gets her redemption story, which is she's not the one that gets killed and she comes back and has some kind of piece there.
It does. I think, yeah.
This is what's problematic is in 2016, I wouldn't have been able to even tell you any of this. And now I can do it.
I find that amazing.
Thinking.
I think that's amazing.
Okay, so now I'll flip.
Destiny has brought you here.
I'll flip it the other way. My favorite cat will and always be Monkastrap. Which person is Is there a Monkastrap amongst them? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
I have Monkastrap as Ethan.
Oh, interesting.
I had that as no, the grandpa.
Oh, okay. I think
I can do no wrong. He's great.
Pretty straight. Like Monkish Trap is pretty straight laced. Wants to be in charge. Wants to be in control, but like not yet. And so that's kind of how I had Ethan. Is like he's really pretty reserved, but wants to be more in control of everything going on. And you see some of the cut scenes of that where he's been like all the stuff with Aubrey Plaza. And so that's where I kind of had him there. But I also had the Monkish Trap Cameron. Like I had Cameron as Tugger. Like
I had Cameron
as Tugger.
Cameron
when I was thinking
definitely around
and Monkish Trap and Tugger are brothers, so that's a pretty known definitive
Ethan
piece.
Cameron.
So I feel like that kind of fit too. With even though they're not brothers, they're very kind of close into that.
Monkish Trap and Tugger are brothers,
and McCavity are all Old Deuteronomy sons. There's a few things that are like pretty well established, or at least most considered, and those three are that's one that's well considered.
That's not something that I have seen a ton of, but that's also because I mean, but that works for all of the headcanon I have.
Okay, so is anyone Mistopheles, or do we not have a Mistopheles on this show?
I had Albie as Misto, but it's not perfect because he's a little bit more showmanship. I had trouble with the Bert, Dom, Albie trio because they don't really naturally fit. I think Dom, there's maybe some Gus in there of the old I've lived my life with grandfather, and then
from a saucer, even though I'm a 75-year-old man.
And then I have one of them could be Bustopher Jones because he just feels like a mob boss to begin with, and the guys from Sopranos. That's where I know him from. So, so I had Misto just in there because it's like Albie is a little on the younger side, wants to be more involved in the scene and everything, but there's not I didn't find a clear cut for Misto. There's nobody that's over the top showman in the show that I got. And it's probably because it's hard to do that with how many storylines they got going on.
I mean, as many storylines as Cats, at least. Okay. One more. Is there a Victoria?
Ooh,
I don't think so.
Victoria, we haven't been explaining this on. Victoria's the white cat, the ballerina, the dancer. Francesca Hayward plays her in the movie.
I didn't have a Victoria. I can run you quickly through the other ones I had. I had Greg as Gus because he was kind of on the verge of death but hasn't died yet from season 1 and now. And he kind of looks like him. Kind of looks like him in a lot of ways.
That's great.
I had Portia as Joey Lorem. So very caring, has to take care of other people. Not sure.
But Joey Lorem's old.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't Portia be maybe Syllabub? AKA Jemima in the British version.
Yeah, you could fit Syllabub or
young cat, the kitten.
Yeah. I have Harper, which is Aubrey Plaza as Jenny, just very straight lace. Also, she sleeps in every morning, and that's like Jenny. Daphne, I also had as Bomb Ballerina. She's just kind of a free spirit, doesn't care about anything, knows that Tugger's cheating on her, but whatever, doesn't care about it. Quentin I had as Bustopher Jones, just form a cavity, kind of mob bossy, especially recently. And then Jack was hard. I had Jack as potentially Mungo Jerry when he was kind of harmless, but being paid by a rich family to just kind of cause chaos. That feels like Mungo Jerry and Rumpel Teether. But I feel like if he gets turned into a villain, then there's some challenges there.
Right. Well, I feel like he's a bystander, but I guess maybe if he's roped into killing her or something, then being paid to kill her or something.
My personal favorite is Valentina is Skimbleshanks.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because she keeps,
the railway cat.
Keep everything on time. Keeps everything running. And then
also, I had an episode with Will Rowland, who's big on Broadway. He was in Dear Evan Hansen and Be More Chill and a bunch of other stuff. He was on in Billions, and he has this hot take that Skimbleshanks is into all kinds of kinky stuff. And I was like, oh, it's Valentina. She's exploring that side of her, but isn't there yet. And so that was the one I thought was that's probably the clearest one I had a picture of.
Okay, that's amazing.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
All right, now we're gonna play some Buy Rent Meh, which is the signature Friday night movie game. I don't know if we'll do all of them, but we'll throw a couple at you. The one I'm most interested. So buy, rent, meh. The audience knows, but just to recap, we throw 3 things at our guest. The guest must then force rank each of them according to buy, rent, or meh. Buy being the one you want to take home and own, that VHS you want to own. Rent being the one you only want for a couple of days. Maybe you'd pay late fees on it, maybe not. And then meh, you can really decide what that meh means. It can be disgust, it can be indifference. It's just not buy or rent. So the most problematic cat. Now, I suggested to you to choose between Growl Tiger, whose song has been removed from the play. It has a little bit of, to put it lightly, some racial insensitivity in it. Deuteronomy, who now even more is he fathered lots of kids, and the kids are all at war with each other. And then I put in Rum Tum Tugger because he's very thrusty, but maybe he also, maybe he's not a dirtbag. Maybe he's into consent. I don't know. But how do you respond to this list? Because I understand you might have some edits to the list.
I have 3 total different.
Oh, so you don't even want to play this one. Right, go for it.
No, I think I love the game. But when we talk about problematic, I had a couple different thoughts of what's more problematic of cats. So and Growl Tiger's in that range, but I had it as, I'm going to buy Street Tugger. So if you don't know what Street Tugger is.
Street Tugger is a specific rendition of Rum Tum Tugger from the version.
Like probably 2012 or something, like just before the Broadway revival in London, they decided to turn Tugger into a rapping hip hop cat, and
like gold chain.
Let's just say it didn't go well.
I saw a video of it, and I was in mortal fear that the Rum Tum Tugger I would see in 2016 was that one.
Yeah. And so a couple of the people that did it though are like unbelievable performers. I feel so bad because like I really want to talk to one of them and none of them want to go on record on it. So I want to buy that because it's my favorite punchline to use. I use it for like, I have the picture, I know the performer, and I use it all the time because it was such a bad mistake. And it was, again, pretty problematic as a decision to begin with. So that's my buy. My rent is McCavity, because if you look, McCavity has a line in his song that is a little, has a lot of implications depending on how you read it. But one of the lines of the song is, he's broken every human law. And if you think about that, there are some human laws that are like, oh, that's kind of fun. Like it'd be fun to see McCavity doing tax, fraud. But then it's like, there's also some that would be a little not fun to talk about. And that's like, so if he's broken every human law, there is a wholesome version of that, and there's a not wholesome version of that.
Doesn't that imply bestiality?
It implies a lot of things.
Becky.
What?
Yeah.
His whole life is bestiality. He's a cat.
No, but I mean, a human law,
right?
Is
so
that you don't have sex with animals.
Sex with animals. So he broke. I was thinking that he had sex with a human. Doesn't mean he had sex with a human.
Oh, I thought you were going to mean.
But it's not a cat law, so for him, he's fine.
But it's a human law not to have sex with a cat.
No, but maybe different species. So maybe he had sex with like a pigeon.
No, I bet he had sex with a human.
Okay. There's a lot. Yeah, there's
we don't have to dissect it.
All right, and who's your third one?
And then I had the Growl Tiger Jemima. I think like just renaming the cats. There's plenty of others. Like there was a Siamese cat that they did in Growl Tiger. There's some other things. It's healthy progression, but like they didn't change Jemima, they just renamed her. So it's like, how much did they really fix of this? So some of it's like, it's just, there's a bunch of like ensemble cats that have random names and it's different in every country.
I think she's only renamed in the United States, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a Gilbert and
Street Tugger also still calls her Jemima.
Yeah, so that's when I was like, meh. So that's my 3 in there.
But how do you rank in that order? Is that your order?
Yeah, buy Tugger, Street Tugger, rent, McCavity, and meh on Jemima.
Okay. And well, I guess we got to know now which cat should have died.
Oh, this is
I have 3 here: Grisabella, Skimbleshanks, and Gus the theater cat. These are Grisabella actually dies in the play and gets reborn. Skimbleshanks, it's always unclear to me which ones are up for rebirth, because it doesn't strike me Rum Tum Tugger's old enough, but he has a whole song. And then Skimbleshanks seems like he's on the older edge. He's been working that train for a long time. And then Gus Theater Cat is very old. He limps. Ian McKellen's just lapping up milk.
Yeah. So I'm going to pose this to you all first, because this is going to be a deep dive in part 2 of this on my podcast. So yes. I think the biggest question is, how does old Deuteronomy make his decision every year? And I'll start with that question to you all. How do you think he decides every year?
I mean,
this is a yearly activity. One cat dies every year.
Yeah.
They don't die. They don't die. They go to the, what's it called?
Heaviside Layer.
Heaviside Layer. Yeah.
Evangelical life.
So it's not really dying. Well, but it's different, because I'm sure cats get hit by cars and die all the time in this world. This is a different type of, like, it's an ascension, you know,
like nirvana,
spiritually raised up to a different place.
My very childlike brain thinking of our parents, like that, like what they told us was like, yeah, the one with the best song. And I'm not a Memory fan. I've always found Memory kind of a drag, because before I ever even saw Cats the play, it would always end up being sung in any one of our Jewish day school recitals. Like you'd get like Hatikva, Chai, 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 and then Leslie Sherman would sing Memories, because he had the best voice. And so I was never super into that song, because I was way too familiar with it. But that's what my parents said. So I think, I mean, as a kid, though, I would never understood Grisabella. I was, but I mean, I think it's about who had the most. I think Deuteronomy knows things about the character, the cats and their redemption arcs, that the younger cats don't understand. And in some ways, part of it is less is about him. It's more about the other cats coming around and understanding and seeing what Deuteronomy sees. And so that's where I go. And I think he or she, depending on which version, or they know from the beginning it's Grisabella's time, that she wants to get back. She's done her part. It's really actually on the part of the rest of the tribe to let her back in. And once that happens, Grisabella goes. So that's my rationale. Lily, Becky, have you spent as much time thinking about this as me since 1991?
I don't have a problem that it's her. So the premise of your podcast is...
I'll say this also. I think the movie makes a much better case than the play.
I saw the play many years ago and was always on board. I was like, she looks like she's had a hard time. Let her enjoy the Heaviside Layer. She does have the best song. Enjoy. Okay. All these other young cats can like keeping it real down on the not Heaviside Layer, and they'll earn their chance. But like,
I would say,
like she needed a bath stat. Like, I feel like get that cat into a warm bath up in the Heaviside Layer, let her chill, and someone else will have her turn next time.
I feel like it's clear what Shai said, that Deuteronomy knows things that we don't know and understands their redemption arcs in ways that we don't understand, because just surface layer, I would think Gus deserves it. It's sort of, I see it as who's put the most time in, who's done the most acts of service for the cat community and now is ready to move. So on the surface, I would think Gus the theater cat. But clearly we don't know. We don't have all the information. And I'm not going to presume to argue with Deuteronomy, even if I don't 100% understand his or slash.
Now that Becky's describing this, though, there's a bit of a misdirect. Gus is on stage for a lot of that play. He has a long solo.
I think it is a misdirect. I was going to mention that part of me like was shocked as a kid and like, oh wait, like somebody else. And I think that's part of it. Plus, there's sort of like this, this outcast underdog type story of this, the bully, whatever, the one that's been shunned will then get to rise up. There's, that's always super motivating and inspiring.
I love hearing you all debate it. Let's unpack some of this for you. So I do think Old Deuteronomy has more knowledge, but I think I've heard from different Old Deuteronomies one piece of this, which is he knows before the ball starts that Grisabella's coming back because he's all knowing, and others saying actually he's picking Skimble or somebody else, and then when Grisabella comes back halfway through, he changes his mind. So there isn't consensus there, which it makes it pretty interesting of like, how all-knowing is he? I do think, Shai, what you said in the beginning, so my joke stemmed from, I saw Leona Lewis. I left this out in the beginning. I saw Leona Lewis was my Grisabella the first time.
Wow.
And I knew her from the X Factor. Like that's all I knew her from.
Quite a
Bleeding
voice.
Love. So I knew that. So I was excited to see her belt Memory. Mm-hmm. But as it went, I'm like, this is a really weird X Factor. Like I'm watching a singing competition.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
If I'm voting as the audience, which I do think the tour could do, which I've been trying to push the tour to do. Like, let's vote, let the crowd vote and pick a different person each night. But if I'm voting as an audience member, I'm not picking Grisabella. I love Memory. I thought it was great. I thought Leona Lewis was a great singer. Mamie Paris, who I saw do it the second time, like is phenomenal. I'm picking in true X Factor fashion. I'm taking Tugger and Mistopheles together, and I'm making them the next One Direction. And I'm going to combine two solos. That's who I'm picking. 90% of the fan fiction is about their love story anyways. So I know the audience is on my side. That to me were the ones where I was like, these are fun. Like these are fun that you can vote on. So I think if you take a American Idol X Factor style, you get one answer. You also gave two other versions, which is it's a redemption arc. So then if that's the one, it probably is Grisabella. That's probably your biggest one. But I would argue, do you have a redemption arc every year? Like, is someone going to have that every year? Probably not. So I don't buy that one from Old Deuteronomy as much.
Right.
But I think the third one is that he teaches a lesson, and it can be a different lesson every year. And then it becomes the lesson he teaches is redemption this year, and that's why it's Grisabella. But what's the lesson he's going to teach next year? My biggest challenge with Grisabella right now, if you ignore my joke, which is that I want Tugger Mistopheles, that was how this all started. This didn't start from like this like deep rooted knowledge that I have now. The most common answer is Gus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Besides Grisabella, it's those two are the most common answers, or you've got some humorous versions. But my challenge is if you are going to give Grisabella her redemption, why bring her back to her family that she's wanted and longed to become back to, and then immediately kill her? Like, let her go to a year's worth of birthday parties and like get to see her daughter that she abandoned, and like let's give her. She's next year's choice for me. She can go next year.
Have you seen Spirited with Ryan Reynolds?
Not yet. I heard it's great.
Check out Spirited. There's an element there
that has anything to do with this.
I just saying there's an element there actually that would give me a different approach. Okay, Mike Abrams of the Wrong Cat Died podcast. Everyone, remember this is part 1 of 2. So you're going to hear part 1. Part 2 is going to continue on Mike's show. And but before we head out, we always got to get our shout outs and recs. This is maybe the most important part of the show. Mike, where can people follow you, and what have you been watching? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so at the Wrong Cat Died on Twitter, as long as it survives Instagram and TikTok. Wrong Cat Died on any podcast platform, and it's part of the Broadway Podcast Network, which is great. If you are a theater fan, there are some incredible shows on their network that are not all about cats. So if you are into theater, I highly recommend checking out the Broadway Podcast Network and I think 200 plus shows that are part of that network.
Very cool. And what do you recommend?
Oh, so I have a couple, but I don't think any of them are like that new. So I'll give you some fun things.
That's fine. People like old stuff too. People just are sometimes looking for a show. So go.
Yeah. I emphasize that I watch a lot of reruns of sitcoms, and I've always been a sitcom fan. My favorite sitcom is Yes Dear, which is generally a hot take for a lot of people. If you even remember Yes Dear from the 5 or 6 years it was on ABC.
I don't know, but I feel like you're really speaking Shai's language here.
No. Yes Dear. I don't watch.
No, I just mean like old sitcoms that you watch reruns of that
basically
you love.
What does TBS just have on for hours on end it was Yes Dear for a while. Now it's it's Friends and Seinfeld.
So you fell asleep watching the Pacers on TBS, and you're just watching the rerun.
Yeah, just keep watching it over and over again. So the ones that I have is I've loved on Netflix Cobra Kai. Super fun, not super new. Good chance I might be getting for a separate thing, talk to Ralph Macchio. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
That's fun.
We are the OG podcast to cover that show. When it was on YouTube
Red.
I got a subscription and we watched it for a while. That episode was our most listened to episode by a long shot. And I think it's because we're the only ones who thought to cover it. So I
love it.
And then Shai met Ralph Macchio.
Yeah. And Ralph Macchio, Billy Zabka, and Martin Kove at Comic-Con, when they were just at the bottom, sort of not the huge attraction at a Comic-Con. They were an attraction, but there was no like line.
That's awesome.
We also brought Martin Cove matzah and butter for Passover. He couldn't have been the nicest Jewish grandpa you've ever met. There couldn't be a nicer Jewish grandpa in the world than Martin Cove.
Amazing.
It's incredible.
Amazing. I have loved Letterkenny.
Oh,
so again, I'm a hockey player. I grew up playing hockey. I started playing when I was 3 years old. I still play here in New York. So Letterkenny, and then I've enjoyed the Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney Plus, even though it's definitely not geared towards me. It's super fun to like have that.
Did season 2 come out?
Season 2 came out. It's
Emilio this season.
Yeah, he's off from what I've heard, somewhat controversial reasons. But they replaced him with another. I forget the guy's name, but another person.
I think.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's someone that everyone knows. I was like, oh, this is a good new, essentially exact same character. So I enjoyed that. And then the one I've watched a lot of, and they've had a couple really good recently ones, is Netflix is like 30 for 30, which is called, I think it's called Untold. Mm-hmm. They had they've done the documentary. So they did one on Manti Te'o, which was fascinating about how he got catfished. They did one on Pacers.
Did you watch that one?
I did watch it. It's crazy.
Is it though? Okay, because I couldn't tell if it was like exploitive or I couldn't tell like what it was, if it was actually like interesting to watch, but I was interested in watching it.
I was pretty close to that story when it was live because I was in Indiana. I had friends at Notre Dame that worked on the football team that knew him and were friends with him. And I didn't know 90% of like the depth of that. So like it was really interesting to see. And they've had a couple other ones. Like they did one on the Malice in the Palace, which was the Pacers Brawl, which was a little too close to home for me. And then they did one on the NBA official that was betting and cheating. So they've just done a really good like deep dive on some stuff that I've really liked. If you're a sports fan, they've done some fascinating documentaries.
But I feel like these kinds of stories, it's like goes beyond even sports fandom because
Lily loves some scandal. Lily loves
like I don't care about the sports, but those are some serious scandals.
Yeah. All right, Beck and Lil. Thank you, Mike. Beck and Lil. Where can people follow you, and do you have any recs?
People can follow us at FNM Sisters, our joint Instagram account. It is adorable. Baby pictures and food that we eat. Pretty much that's it. And I have 2 words for you. Harry and Meghan, Netflix.
Oh. Really? You're watching that?
100%. Watched in the past. Have watched. I've watched the first 3 episodes. I am going to watch.
I root for all of the Succession characters more than the people in the royal family.
I don't care about the royal family, but I'm really interested in the story. And I cannot wait to watch the following episodes that will be released with your wife, Shai, when I visit you in the States. So
great. Becky?
That's all. Well, I'm really excited. I finally started the Willow TV show the other night. So I've only seen the first episode because I wanted to rewatch the movie first. So I rewatched the movie and then I watched the first episode, and I'm planning on watching that the rest of this weekend and catching up. So
that's
what I'm doing.
You know how in like Andor they're praised, oh, finally a dark take on Star Wars that's nothing like Star Wars, so therefore it's the best. Or when they do a Marvel show and they're like, this is nothing like the rest of Marvel, so therefore it's good. You know what this Willow show is like? It's like Willow. And my kids love the characters. They love them. They think about them. They talk about them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't know if there's an audience for this show, but I can tell that people who don't have a sense of wonder, people who, let's say, aren't open enough to like something like Cats, are probably not going to get into Willow, but it's great. I'm
very excited to watch
it. Game of Thrones type show, but instead of like inappropriate violence and sexual misconduct, the characters are funny and caring and diverse and interesting, and it's
wonderful,
lovely. It's lovable.
Sounds like a treat.
That's my recommendation too. And I would like to recommend a band, the Stars. Becky and I went to go see them last night, and I know forever it's one of Becky and Lily's favorite bands. You've put their music on mixes for me, and I'd even had tickets once before and just not gone. And they are a phenomenal live.
I'm so glad you
went.
Their
live show.
I'm so glad you went.
Their music is great on record, but their live show is outstanding. outstanding.
And I have to say, their voices 20 years later,
perfect.
Beautiful. Perfect. Well, they must take very good care of their vocal cords because they both sound perfect.
The voices are amazing, and the music is edgier live, which is like such a great way to hear the music. I had so much fun. It was great. Becky, thank you for bringing it. Becky brought me.
It was a lot of fun.
Becky, and when I say brought me, Becky handled the Uber. I traveled.
Well, one of the Uber.
That's still wonderful. All right.
50% better than the rest of my track record.
You can follow all the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at Fry Night Movie. Remember to go to Instagram. Voting for the Signal Awards ends on December 22nd. And as of now, with us doing the most possible promotion, we are just slightly ahead of Conan O'Brien for the limited series co-host category. And if everyone votes, we might have a chance of losing admirably. So just stay with it, everyone. And a huge thanks to Mike Abrams. Part 2 will continue on The Wrong Cat Died. You got to check it out. The theme music is by What Does It Eat? And thanks for doing the show. Bye, guys.
Bye.